This
Good morning.
conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, Linda. Good morning, all those who are here in person. Good. So, Parsha Nitzavim is always read right before Rosh Hashanah. The Shabbos before Rosh Hashanah, we always read Nitzavim, and there are many, many aspects of Nitzavim which really speak to Rosh Hashanah. Let's begin, page 1086, Parsha Nitzavim, Perek Chavtet, chapter 29, verse 9, in Devarim. Atem Nitzavim Hayom Kulchem. You are standing today, Kulchem, all of you, Lifnei Hashem Elokechem, before Hashem your God, Rashechem, your leaders, Shiftechem, tribes, Ziknechem, elders, Shotrechem, officers, Kol Ish Yisroel, every member of Israel, Tapchem, children, the Shechem, wives, Gercha, the converts, the proselytes, Asher B'Kerev Machanech, in the midst of your camp, from the wood choppers to the water drawers. Everyone is here, La'avrecha Bivrit, to have you pass into the Brit, into the covenant of Hashem Elokecha, of Hashem your God, Uba Alato, and this oath, Asher Hashem Elokecha Koreit Imcha Hayom, that Hashem your God is making with you today. Now it's very interesting for those who have the Hebrew nuances. Atem, plural. Nitzavim, standing, plural. Kulchem, all of you, very plural. Rashechem, Shiftechem, everything is plural, plural, plural. Then it says in verse 11, La'avrecha, for you to pass into the covenant. La'avrecha is Lashon Yachid. That is now in the singular. So all the commentators, before we get to the Nesiva Shalom and the Zohar, all of the commentators here, good morning, all the commentators are asking, what is this Brit? What is this covenant? I mean, we're at the end of Devarim. We're at the end of Deuteronomy over here. We're well into the covenant. This is no news for us. But rather, they explain, this is a new, different type of covenant. And this is the Brit, the covenant of Arvut. An Orev is a guarantor. And what happened by the sin of the golden calf, by the Chet HaEgel, is, hey, I'm okay. I'm not getting involved in this. So whatever you're doing, what does that have to do with me? And that is a dangerous place for us to be in. We now have this Brit of Arvut, of co-responsibility, that we are all responsible for one another. The way that it's explained, or Shemar Yochai gives a parable, we're all on one boat. We're all on this big ship. I take out a saw and I start to cut a hole under my seat. You say, hey, what are you doing? I say, hey, it's my seat. I'm cutting a hole. But obviously that's going to sink the entire ship. And we all have this co-responsibility for one another. And if you just jump up ahead for a moment to page 1090, still chapter 29, but the last verse, verse 28, Hanistarot, the very top line on 1090, Hanistarot la Hashem Elokeinu. The hidden things, that is for Hashem, our God, to deal with. V'haniglot lanu. But that which is revealed to us, if we see someone else who is struggling, someone else who's in need, whatever it might be, that is lanu ulevanenu, to us and to our children, ad olam, for all eternity. And that also explains this idea back to 1086, where we switched from we switched from the plural to the singular. You're all gathered here as many, many, many parts, la'avrecha, in the singular, that you are being passed through now as a single entity, as a single being, so to speak. And this is an idea that we are all like this one goof, this one body. And when part of the body is hurting, then the whole body is in pain, and the body sends over that which it needs. This was personally shown to me in a very powerful way when I was a teenager spending time in Israel studying. I had the tremendous gift and opportunity to spend a Shabbos with Rav Hillel Zaks, Zatzal, of blessed memory. This was a grandson of the Chafetz Chaim and the Rosh Yeshiva of the Hebron Yeshiva, which after the riots in Hebron in the late 1920s moved to Jerusalem. So he was the Rosh Yeshiva there. How I got to spend a Shabbos with him is another story, but I had the opportunity to spend a Shabbos, my friend and I, my friend is now a Rosh Yeshiva, we had, as two teenagers, we spent Shabbos with Rav Hillel Zaks. And an issue that this friend and I were contending with was, we understood now it was important to study Torah, but to grab every moment to study, that seemed a little bit extreme to us. And as we were walking to shul, and we hadn't discussed this with him or with each other out loud, as we were walking to shul Friday, Shabbos afternoon, through Geula, the Geula neighborhood in Yerushalayim, out of the clear blue, he starts to talk to us about that very point. And he says to us, boys, every single word of Torah that you learn changes you, transforms you. And it changes your neshama, it changes your soul. Not from an orange to a grapefruit, but from a peanut to a watermelon. That's what every word does. And now we don't see it. Mashiach's going to come and we'll be all opened up and the glow of our neshama, of our soul will be apparent. And then we'll see the power of every single word. Wow. My friend and I are looking at each other saying, how did he know to talk about the very issue that we were dealing with? We didn't say anything. We just soaked it in. Years and years later, I'm now a Rebbe at that yeshiva where I had been a student. And Rav Hillel Zaks Zatzal came to speak, and I had the privilege of driving him home afterwards. And I recounted to him this whole story. He didn't remember. To my friend and I, we should have my friend see where he's at with this story. But to my friend and I, it was a real watershed event. For him, he had these two punky teenagers over Shabbos one time, and he spoke to us on the way to shul. It wasn't a life-altering event for Hillel Zaks, that's for sure. So he didn't recall. But I told him the story, how he had hit the nail on the head with exactly the issue that we were contending with. And he said, I'll tell you pshat in that. I'll give you the explanation of that. And he said, as we're saying over here, we are all one goof. Jewish people were all this one entity, this one body. And when, if the right arm is working hard, what happens? The body sends a little extra oxygen, a little extra energy over to that right arm so it can do the work, right? When a part of the body is in need, the body sends that which it needs to the part that is in need. So the two of you were in need of this understanding, of this teaching. So the body sent it over, the guf echad. And I like to add that it takes a very special person who's able to somehow sense what another part of the body, what another person might need, and to deliver just that. But that's the idea of this brit, this covenant of arvut, of togetherness, of co-responsibility, of guarantorship for one another. With that having been said, the Nesiva Shalom brings from the Zohar. It says in the Zohar, Atem Nitzavim, our very first pasuk. Atem, I'm sorry, 1086. 1086, the very first pasuk. Atem Nitzavim Hayom. You are standing today. What is today? Yoma Didina. That is a reference to the Yom Hadin, the day of judgment, Rosh Hashana. On that day, we all stand. Atem Nitzavim Hayom. We all stand on that day. Kulchem, every last one of us, Lifnei Hashem Elokechem. We all stand before Hashem, your God. And then we go down into different groups. Rashechem, Shiftechem, Ziknechem, Shotrechem. We said before, leaders, tribes, elders, officers, children, women, converts, wood choppers, water drawers. What's that? That everyone stands before God as they are. Meaning, different expectations from each of us. We each have different roles. We each have many different roles and different positions that we assume. And based on that is the expectation, right? Rosh Hashanah is all about giving us how have we been utilizing the gifts that have been given to us to help us determine what will be allotted to us for the forthcoming year. We've mentioned before, Rosh Hashanah is called the Yom Hadin, the day of judgment. But judgment is about the past. Rosh Hashanah means the head, the start of the year. That's about future. So is it a Yom Hadin? Is it a day of judgment about the past? Or is it a Rosh Hashanah? Or is it the start of the year? If it's simply a day of judgment, it should be on the last day of the previous year. It shouldn't be on the first day. Now we're starting a new stretch, a brand new sheet over here. So what is it? How do we understand it? And an understanding that we have is that it is both. Because if I am the CEO of a company, and I'm determining what should be going forward, how do I allot the limited resources of this company amongst the different divisions? How do I decide that? Well, I certainly look at past performance. There's a Yom Hadin, I look at the past performance. But even more important than that is something else that I need to focus on. Meaning I call on my department heads, and this department has done really well. And I say, wow, that was great. What are your plans for this forthcoming year? And they say, we're going to work on our backhand tennis lessons. That's what we're working on this year. That's not all that encouraging to the CEO. And there's another division which lost terribly this past year. What are your plans for next year? Hello, Janet. What are your plans for next year? And they say, well, we've taken stock, we've done an assessment, we see what we've done wrong, and we recognize now how to correct that. This is how to do this will be doing that, this is our plan, these are the benchmarks, this is the time frame that we hope to accomplish this and then that. The CEO says, wow, right? That's a division that I want to allot a good portion of the budget to. So it's not just the past. More important than the past is what are the plans for the future. And that's what we're talking about here. We're all standing before Hashem. Lifnei Hashem Elokechem, Rashechem, each person in their position with the many positions that we hold and the responsibilities that go along with that. But then he says something fascinating. Atem Nitzavim. Nitzavim means standing strong. Page 1086. Nitzavim means standing, but not just standing, standing strong, standing firm, standing secure. Wow. Well, that's the big question. How do we stand strong, secure, firm on Rosh Hashanah? Kulchem. When we're not standing as an individual, but we're standing as part of a tzibur. That is what the pasuk is telling us. The Zohar says. How do we stand strong before Hashem every day? And Hayom, as the Zohar said, is on Yom Kippur. On Rosh Hashanah, how do we stand strong before Hashem on Rosh Hashanah? Kulchem, when we are part of the group, not standing alone, but identifying with, working with, helping to carry the tzibur, the congregation together. And it goes on to say that when we say Banim Atem LaHashem Elokeichem, right, we'll be saying Avinu Malkeinu. Avinu, our father, Malkeinu, our king.
Not my father, my king.
I'm sorry?
Not my father.
Correct.
My king,
right?
My father,
right? And so we are, the pasuk, the verse says, Banim atem LaHashem Elokeichem. You are the children of Hashem. It doesn't say you are the ben, you are the child. It says you are the children. When we are part of this group, there's what he calls the koach harabim, the strength, the force of the community, of the many. That is what transforms us into banim. And then he brings from a different sefer, atem, the very first word, you, that is the Rashi Tevot, that's the word, the start of the words, al tashlichenu milfanecha, which means don't send us away from before you. Right? On Rosh Hashanah, right? Actually, that is the Tehillim that we include in our daily morning Shacharit morning prayers every day, starting with Rosh Hashanah. That we say the Tehillim that has the words Al Tashlichenu, do not send us away, mi litfanecha, from before you. And how do we know? How can we be sure we will not be sent away? Nitzavim, stand strong, Hayom, on this day of Rosh Hashanah, as Kulchem, as all of us together, to become part. When I'm standing alone, so then the judgment is on me as an individual. When I am part of a tzibur, of a community, then a part of the nation, then the judgment is not just on me as an individual, but on all those that are affected, that are involved with each and every one of us. And that's what gives us that koach, that strength. And then he quotes the famous teaching of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva said, V'ahavta l'reacha chamocha, love your fellow as yourself. Ze klal gadol batorah. He famously said, this is the big klal, rule, concept of the Torah. This is the yesod. This is the foundation of the entire Torah. He says this is hakoach la Yehudi. This is the power that a person has b'chol hazmanim, at all times. Bizmanim hakadoshim, during our times that we are on the upswing, when we are in a state of holiness. Ubizmanim hayerudim biyoter, and the times that we are having our inevitable slips, falls, low times. We all go through our ups and downs. We spoke about before about the 10 groups, the elders, the leaders, the officers, etc., etc. Right? It's not just different people, it's also us at different points, both in our life and in our mind and in our heads, right? We all have the times that we are feeling energized and full and really aligned, and there are times that we feel, right? To quote Jackson Brown, running on empty, right? That we're just not feeling it. We're just not finding it, right? We all go through that. So he
What
says,
do you do about that? Sometimes
huh?
there's no discernible reason. You've slept well, thank God you're healthy,
Yeah,
what do you do to
yeah,
get your energy back?
yeah. So let me just finish this and then we'll touch upon that. Right. So that's the koach of the Yehudi at all times, during the times of kedusha, of holiness, and the times hayurudim biyoter, of exceptional lowliness. Al yidei she'Yehudi ma'acher atzmam Klal Yisrael, when we connect ourselves with Klal Yisrael, with the entire nation, she'az b'koach harabim harei hein b'vichinat banim. Then, through the power of the group, we become this. We take on this status of banim, of the children of Hashem. Arachmanut alein hi karachim av al banim. And then the way that God has compassion on us is in the way that a parent has compassion on a child. And I would just add that a parent has the most compassion on the child who's struggling the most, right? That's who occupies most of our headspace. The ones that are doing well, thank God. But the ones that are struggling, that's who our minds are on. So, Jana, you asked. So, when a person feels that they're going through a lower time, right?
But thank God there's no discernible.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. So
it's
there
just
is,
energy currency.
yeah. There are spiritual ebbs and flows
Really?
that we all go through, right? And to compare it to the heart monitor, right? That's what spiritual life is. If it's like this, right? We know in the heart monitor, we know what that means,
Right.
right? That's not what we want, right? And Rav Volbe speaks about this in Alei Shur, that he quotes from Rabbeinu Tam, one of the great Tosafos, one of the great commentators on the Gemara, that a person needs to realize that that is part of our ruchaniyut, our spirituality, and one should not become discouraged when one has the downs, understanding, recognizing that's how it works, and we're going to have those lulls, and during those times, he says it's important not to let go completely, but it might be a time to slow down certain things, right? To not overburden ourselves. Yes, Esther, and then Jenny.
I was just gonna say from Havovos, I can never say it right.
Mm-hmm.
The teaching last night is that change is life. Life is
Right.
change. So if you didn't have change, then there wouldn't be life. The fact that you have those ups and downs proves that you are alive.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. And to just build on that, on Monday nights, anyone would like to join us at 5:45, we learn Chavos Halvava, studies of the heart, right, both in person and online. And there he says also, just to piggyback on that, right, he said that change is life, but he also said that every change is heavenly orchestrated and directed in order to give us an opportunity, right? And perhaps come back to your question, and perhaps the opportunity that comes from that is not to take things for granted, to dig in a little bit, to push ourselves a little bit more, dig in a little bit deeper, and when davening is going great, fine, beautiful. When I'm struggling with my davening, that pushes me to focus a little bit more, to take out some time before and after to read up a little bit more, to get a few more insights, to connect to it better. Yeah, beautiful. Excellent point. Thank you, Esther. Yes, Jenny.
I was thinking about this morning when I was davening that I had very little kavana. I couldn't get myself to focus at all. And I have days like that. I just can't put my mind to it. And then I think, well, maybe I shouldn't be davening because, with this kavanah, this is like really, this is not a good thing. But then I do find that it's the habit of doing it daily that pushes me forward. Because if I decide that I'm not doing it well, that I haven't got kavanah and I'm just not, achieving it today, and I just decide not to do it, then it pushes me backwards.
Yeah.
But if I just do it, and
Yeah.
some parts of it will still come out, you can catch
Yeah.
yourself doing something.
100%.
Yeah.
That's I agree with you 100%. With our relationships,
Yeah.
right? If there's someone who calls us just when they, right, when that call comes in, it's a very different feeling that we have than a person who calls us on a consistent basis. And then when they, right, someone who calls on a consistent basis, if they are in need of something, we're all there, right? The people who only call when they need us, you see the name of the phone. All right, what do they need this time, right? So when it comes to us and Hashem, we don't want to be the ones who only call out when this one's sick, this one lost their job, I need this, I need that. We want to be consistent. And actually, someone had shown me a post that someone had written on Facebook, which I'd like to respond to when I have some time. Hopefully today I'll have some time to respond to it. The person was saying that that the davening is so, the way it's done, it's so empty. It's just babbling, blah 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 blah. And compared it to throwing flowers to one's fiance or wife as he's going 55 miles an hour on the highway. You throw, and my thought was, well, there's a famous story with the Vidishiver, who was the Oev Yisroel. And that someone once came to him and said, Rebbe, it's disgusting. Look, the wagon drivers in the middle of davening with their talis and tefillin, they're under their wagons greasing their axles. During davening, they're greasing their axles. And the B'dishiver said, wow, even when they grease their axles, they daven. It all depends how we want to look at it, right?
Although I do experience when we're in the klal, and that's me because of my background, but I've really tried, as you know, that it's pretty fast.
Yeah.
It's pretty fast.
Yeah. And it can be fast. And a person in those situations, the halacha dictates that you should say less with more kavanah. And at times, the davening here, right, for myself also, there are times that I'll start a little bit early. I want to go a little bit slower. And the davening needs to go at a pace that works for the congregation. And I think it's presumptuous to say, well, anything faster than what I'm comfortable with is too fast.
No.
And anything slower than my pace is annoying and distracting, right? And not only is it presumptuous to think that, but the fact is, and it should be, that some days it should be too fast for you, and some days it should be too slow for you. Meaning our own davening should not be this rote that it's on the clock. Yes, it takes me exactly 7 minutes and 42 seconds to say this. It depends on the day. It depends on our mood. It depends on where we're at, right? But we do have this accordion where we could say less or more, right? Based on where we're at. But even if we're going very fast, to me, the very fact that, let's say, the morning davening here, right, or your morning davening at home, whatever one does, right? I'm talking about, let's say, the morning minyan here. A person is taking an hour out of their day every morning. An hour out of their day. They could stay in bed. They could be doing lots of things. If they take an hour out of their day every morning to come to shul, even if they're davening fast, and even if they're not necessarily understanding every word that they're saying, I would imagine that's very precious to Hashem. that I'm taking an hour out of my day. Everyone's busy. Everyone's got a lot of things going on. And to take an hour, their davening is 40 minutes, at least 10 minutes to get here, right? Taking an hour plus out of their day, right? But yeah, Jenny, we struggle at times,
Yeah.
and
But I do find, I just want to end with this, that the rest of the day, because I try to make a Seder every day of what I need to do that day. Sometimes things happen and I don't get to daven at all. And then the day doesn't go as well. It really doesn't. I mean, I just feel like that energy, the energy of starting the day that way
yeah,
is really, it's really crucial. So I
yeah,
suppose.
yes, there certainly is a certain power towards starting the day with
Yeah.
communing with the one above.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that is what he says with Rabbi Akiva. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. That's the klal gadol of the Torah, because that is what gives us that constant connection and that gives us this covenant. So that's the Atem Nitzavim. Let's turn to Perek Lamed, chapter 30, Pasuk Vav. Well, let's actually start Perek Lamed. And this is one of the big Yisodos, foundations of the Torah, page 1090, Lamed Aleph 31. And the main pasuk is verse 6. And I'm not all that good at remembering, oh, this is chapter 24, verse 7, right? But this I always remember, because 36 is a number that we have. There are always 36 righteous people in the world. And this is talking about the world reaching its point of absolute righteousness. And it's 36, chapter 30, verse 6. That's how I remember it. V'hayav, let's begin with verse Aleph. Page 1090, chapter 30, verse 1. V'hayar will be, ki avo elecha kol dvarim elu, and all these things will come upon you. Habracha, v'haklala, the blessing and the curse, asher natati l'vnecha, that I placed before you. V'hashevota el levavecha, and you're going to take it to your heart. V'chol hagoyim, amongst all the nations, asher hidichacha, Hashem elokecha shama, that Hashem your God has scattered you out to there. Vishavta, you will then return ad Hashem elokecha, to Hashem your God. Vishamata v'kolot, and listen to his voice. K'chol, according to all asher anochi mitzavicha hayom, all that I'm commanding you today. Ata, you, uvanecha, your children, v'chol levavcha, v'chol nafshecha, with all your heart and all of your soul. Vishav Hashem elokecha et shavutcha. And then God will bring back your captivity, v'richamecha, and he will have compassion on you. Vishav, and he will return. V'kibetzecha, and will gather you. Mikol amim, from amongst all the nations, asher hefitzcha Hashem elokecha shama, to where Hashem, your God, had scattered you. And I always say we're living the dream, right? We're certainly not yet in the time of Geula, as we'll soon see in Pasuk Vav, the way he describes it. But we have merited to see a tremendous degree of this kibbutz galiyut, of this ingathering of the exiles back to our homeland. Now, interesting, again, Vishav Hashem Elokecha, verse 3, God will bring back. In the English, we don't have this nuance. But if I'm bringing you back, we would say, Veheshiv Hashem Elokecha. That's my acting upon you. If I'm bringing you back, the term is Veheshiv. Vishav means I myself will return. And from this, Rashi famously brings the teaching that our sages teach us that when we are in exile, God is in exile with us. And therefore, he's not just Veheshiv, he's not just acting upon us and bringing us back. He himself will be returning along with us. It's as if he says, Hashem needs to take each of us by the hand. ish mimakomo, each person from his place. Verse 5, God will bring you to the land. Asher Yoshu Avatecha, that your fathers had inherited it. Virishta, and you will inherit it or possess it. In our English translation, when we make the tefillah every Shabbos, the English translation had for Virishta, you will occupy it. And I've changed that translation when we say it because that term has been hijacked and has been thrown against us. But Virishta, possess, or actually I think better than possess, is to inherit it. V'heitivcha, and God will give you good. V'hir b'cha, and will make you more numerous, me'avotecha, from your forefathers. And here's Pasuk Vav, the classic verse 6. Umal Hashem Elokecha et levavcha, God will circumcise your heart, ve'et levav zarecha, and the hearts of your children, li'ahava, to love Hashem Elokecha, Hashem your God, v'chol levavcha, with all of your heart, uv'chol nafshecha, and all of your soul, lema'an chayecha, in order that you may live. So what is this referring to? Circumcision of the heart. And here there is one of those classic Rambans. Ramban Nachmanides is one of the classic commentators on the Torah, on the Talmud, and there are certain teachings that are referred to as very yisodir, right? Really foundational. This is one of them. And he writes as follows. Our sages say, Habala taher mesayinato. Someone who wants to become tahor, purified, he gets help in that direction. Ki acher she tashuv elav. Once we return to Hashem with all of our hearts, hu yazor etcha. Right? He will help you. And then he writes, it seems from this writings here, that from the time of creation, humankind had reshut, had permission, had the choice to do as they wish. Tzaddik, tzedek, or resha. A person can decide, what do I want to do? Do I want to do bad? Do I want to do good? The kol zman haTorah came, and this is the status of the world of humankind throughout all time. Kedei shilhem zechut, and that way we have the merit b'bechiratam b'tov, when we choose good, being that it is an actual choice that we make. I could have gone this way, I went that way. If I chose to go the right way, then that is my merit, and I'm building myself. Aval b'yamot haMashiach, he says. But during the Messianic times, tia b'chira b'tov lahem teva. At that point, choosing good will just be a natural choice, right? We choose to eat. We hardly choose to eat. Of course we're going to eat, right? Breathing. Of course we're going to breathe. Tov, doing good, will be a natural choice, right? None of us deliberate, should I jump into a fire or should I not jump into a fire, right? It's just teva, it's our nature. Lo yitave'alev l'mashein ra'ui. The heart will not desire something that is not befitting. This is the milah. When it spoke about the circumcision of the heart, I will circumcise the heart. This is the circumcision that's mentioned here. Ki achem devatava, the desires, the lusts, that is the uncircumcised heart. Umol halev, and the circumcision of that heart, shelo yachmod, v'lo yitaveh, to not lust, to not want things that are spiritually harmful. V'yashuva adam izman hahu la'asher hayat kodem chetosh olam harishon, and a person goes back to the way humankind was before the sin of eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. We go back to that pre-state. that we did naturally that which we were meant to be doing. We weren't mulling over, I want this, I should, but I shouldn't, I know, but I know, I got, right? All of that inner conflict that we have did not exist, as I explained over there in Bereshit. And then he goes on to say, and this is what it says in the Navi Yechezkel, I will give them a leiv chadash, a new heart, and a ruach chadasha, and a new spirit, meaning lechefetz varatzon, heart meaning will, desire. Our innate desire will be to do right. And that's why the sages said, V'giu shanim shetomer ein li behem chefetz. There'll be times that will say about those times, either I have no desires or I don't want that time. We'll soon see. That's Yemot HaMashiach. There's a Mashiach. Because there is no zuchut, there is no merit, and there is no chova, there is no merit or the opposite. Ki b'yimei HaMashiach lo yeh ba'adam chayv. You're not going to have these desires. Aval yaseh b'tivo ha'maseh ha'hu ha'ra'oi. Naturally, instinctively, we will do that which is proper to do. And therefore, there's no zechut, there's no reward, there's no repercussion. Because merit and opposite is dependent upon my having desire, my having the choice. So as much as we want the Yemot HaMashiach, right? I think we also feel, well, I'm not quite ready to present my credentials and to say, okay, whatever I've accomplished, that's it, and let's call it a day, let's call it a lifetime, right? So actually, we then really, in fact, we grapple a little bit with the whole messianic times, Mashiach time. And our want for it is not so much a personal want, but it is a more selfless want, right? We see suffering around. We love to see that suffering end. And we see tremendous chilul Hashem, a desecration of God's name. I don't believe in God. Oh, how could God do this? How could God be so cruel? You know, that should be paining us. That should be paining us. And to reach the time where, as we say after Aleinu, each time we daven, Yakiru v'yedu kol yoshvei teva. Yakiru, they'll recognize and they will know. Who's they? Kol yoshvei teva, all the inhabitants of this earth. Ki lecha tichral kol barach. That to you, God, every knee should be bending. Lecha, to you, God, tishava kol lashon. Every mouth should be uttering, right? That's what we hope for. That's why we're hoping for it. Even though, for us personally, like I said, I think we each feel there's more that we need to accomplish, and we're not quite ready to call it a day. So, whenever we want to know where does the Torah refer to the redemption, the messianic times, 36. In Devarim, chapter 30, verse 6.
That's so interesting, Rabbi. I would never have taken those words and put that meaning to it.
Yeah.
Very
That's what I said.
interesting.
This Ramban is one of the foundational Rambans. Yeah, you have a few, quite a few, but this is certainly up there.
So I know we really dealt with this a lot with lunch and learn, but we didn't specifically deal with these two. So would one other flag that of the Messianic era be that all Jews are now in Eretz Yisrael? They've all gone to Eretz Yisrael.
So there are different stages to the coming of the Mashiach, and different stages that he's meant to bring the world to, and certainly a kibbutz galiot that Rambam. Interesting. Take a look in Rambam. It's in English. You look on Safaria. Rambam, The Laws of Kings, chapter 11. He goes through what it is that a Mashiach, in order to say, yep, that's the Mashiach. What is it that he needs to do?
Or the forerunner of it that everybody. And then
Yeah.
the other question is, you said naturally we'll do all the right choices. Does that mean we'll have very good intuition that the right choice at that time for us is, say it's between comforting a child and bringing someone a meal? Then you would know which one to do.
I think so also. Yeah. Jan's bringing an interesting point. There are two types of moral dilemmas that we have. Moral dilemma number one: do I cheat on my taxes?
Right and wrong.
Right? And there, right, it's a moral dilemma. It's not really a moral dilemma. We know what we should do, right, and shouldn't do, but we struggle with it, right? And then there's the moral dilemma of, do I, feed my, right, during the Holocaust, do I stifle the cries of the baby to save the lives of everyone else who's in hiding, right? That's a heart-wrenching moral dilemma where it's not, right, give me the strength to do what's right, but what is the right thing to do? Yeah. And I think, yes, at that point we will have this absolute clarity over even those heart-wrenching moral dilemmas, right? Which is the right thing to do. Let us just do one more thing over here. On the bottom of page 1090, Perek Lamed, chapter 30, verse Yud Aleph. It's the last word on 1090. We go to 1092. Ki mitzvah hazot. This mitzvah. Asher anochi mitzvah b'chayim. We're now in 1092. This commandment that I command you today, according to the Kli Yakar, he has two paths. We'll take one of his paths. This is talking about teshuvah, about our own self-improvement. Teshuvah is returning to our source, returning to who we are, who we truly are, what we are meant to be, returning to Hashem. This mitzvah that I'm commanding you today, lo nifleit hi mincha. It is not foreign to you. It's not hidden from you. Velo rechoka hi. And it's not very far. Now, right, there is a teaching that if a person wants to do teshuvah, the real teshuvah is when you have the same exact situation and this time you do it right. But sometimes if I messed up overseas, right, so it is kind of rachok. So it says no. Lo b'shamayim hi. It's not up in the heavens, Lamor, to say, Mi ya'aleh lanu hashamayma. Who will go up to the heavens? Vayikacheha lanu, and bring it to us. Vayashmienu oto, and make it heard to us. V'nasena, and we'll do it. It's already been brought down, right? The Torah has already come down from the heavens. Torah meaning instructions. All of these instructions, all of these guidances have already been brought down to us. Below me'aver liyami, and it's not across the ocean, lemar, to say, mi yavar lanu et ever hayam, who will cross the sea for us, vayikacheha lanu, and take it to us, for us, v'yashmienu ota, and then we'll hear it, v'na'asena, and then we'll do it. Here's the key. Ki karov elecha hadavar ma'od, because the matter is so close to you. How close is it? Ma'od, very close. Just how close? Beficha, uvilvavcha, la'asoto, in your mouth, in your heart, to do it. Right? What does teshuvah involve? It involves honesty, right? Beficha, vidui, right? Confession, not to the rabbi, right? There's no confession booths over here, right? It means to Hashem, right? To be honest about things. Uvil vavcha, and in our heart, right? The three components of teshuvah are to admit it, to regret it, and to resolve not to repeat it. And I always say, in any relationship that we have with people, if someone has wronged you, and if they're missing any one of those three, it's not enough. If they won't do it again and they feel bad, but they're not going to apologize, not so good. They apologize, they won't do it again, but they don't regret it. I don't know why I make such a big deal. I'm sorry that you got so upset. I won't do it again, but I don't know what your problem is, right? So there's no regret. There's just admitting and not doing it again. Or if I admit it, I regret it, but I'm going to do it again, right? Missing any one of those three just does not cut it. It does not work. And therefore the pasuk says it's right there, beficha, in your mouth, uvilvavcha, and in your heart, la'asoto. And the next thing is so powerful. Re'ei, see, natativ nechayom, I've placed before you today, et hachayim et hatov, life, good, mavet, death, ra, evil. Asher anochi mitzavchayom, command you today to love Hashem your God, to go in His ways, to keep the mitzvot. V'chayita, and you will live. V'ravita, you will multiply, and God will bless you in the land that you will come there to inherit. But if you will turn away and serve other gods, I'm telling you now, you will not last on the land that you're crossing the Jordan to come there to inherit. Once again, Haidoti bachem hayom et hashamayim v'et haaretz. I am testifying before you today, bringing as witnesses heaven and earth, hachayim v'hamavet, life, death, natati lefanecha, habracha v'klala, blessing and curse, ubacharta b'chayim, choose life. We'll just end with this. Some commentators point out, ubacharta b'chayim, right? Going back, we said before that Parsha begins Hayom, today. We are standing today, meaning Rosh Hashana. Ubacharta b'chayim. You don't have to change immediately overnight. No one can completely change, right? And it will not be lasting, la briut, Janet. It will not be lasting if we try, if we do. But what must we do? Ubacharta b'chayim. Resolve. Make that decision. Commit that, yes, I will work on raising the bar. Ubacharta b'chayim, that's what we need to do. That's reasonable, that is possible, and that's all that's accepted, all that is expected, hoped for from us. Ubacharta b'chayim. Make that decision. And then, over time, in a meaningful, building manner, we can look to implement that in a reasonable, steady manner. Ubacharta b'chayim. Good. Okay, my friends, we will call it over here.
It's my allergy. I would not come here and spread germs. To me, that's inusable. And especially to have an Avera or a cake like that before Rosh.
Elizabeth, good seeing you. Linda, good seeing you. Everybody could say hello to Linda and to Elizabeth.
Lashana Tovat.
Hashana Tova, everybody. Good.
Well, thank you so much, Rabbi.
You're very welcome. Be well, Linda.
Thank you.